This is 10 in 10. 10 questions in 10 minutes with a college faculty member on a topic related to human health and well-being. Why 10? Because time is precious. And did you know the human attention span is about 8 seconds? You should also know that faculty in the College of Public Health and Human Sciences are world-leading experts in a variety of areas, from nutrition and physical activity to human development and public health. So sit back and give yourself 10 minutes to learn something new about your health and the health of those you love. We promise to make it worth your time. Today, we speak with Kelly Chandler, Assistant Professor in the College of Public Health and Human Sciences at Oregon State. Kelly teaches courses in human development and family sciences and focuses her research on how parents integrate work and family life. She provides tips for juggling work and family, what's working for her family, and why she doesn't care for the term work-life balance. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate your time and the challenge that we're both sharing right now, and a lot of other women are sharing, juggling work and a family confined to home. So how's the juggling act going for you?
It's going. It's smoother now that the kids have adjusted. I'll admit I'm still trying to get in the groove of trying to be able to, especially for my younger daughter Dee, to supervise, like manage the teaching role while also trying to work, especially on those marathon meeting days. Like I got 2 minutes to check in. So it's been a little tricky, but I think we're trying to get into a rhythm.
Great. Well, let's dive in. So tell me, what challenges are parents facing these days, and how does a situation like this change family dynamics?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one that we see a lot is, and I was just mentioning, is parents taking on this new role of teacher, right? So it's already so much to balance or juggle or fit all these different roles of being an employee, a parent, and volunteer work or whatever that is. And so now adding on that hat of being a teacher. So trying to figure out how to fit all those roles together. And childcare, not having childcare, which that goes hand in hand. But, you know, for those that are essential workers and having to go to work, but no childcare. So that's definitely a challenge as well. And I often think about like the frontline workers and the essential workers of that additional stress of going to work and wanting to stay safe. You know, when customers come in and they're not wearing their masks and, you know, putting others at risk. And so just thinking about the family members being concerned about the person going to work in these times is another stressor.
So what have you learned through your research into family stress dynamics? I mean, is anything helping you? Are you bridging your professional and personal life here?
It's definitely been challenging. You know, I think there is some silver lining, right, in that we do have more time to spend together. And finding new ways to spend time together as a family. So kind of getting out of those routines and trying to be creative, I think, is a positive thing. Of course, on the flip side, you're spending more time together and have these additional roles, so you have more opportunities for conflict. So that can definitely be challenging. So I think now more than ever, it's just trying to not force that time, and like give each other their space and time for self-care, and really use those times to bond and focus on the fun times together as much as possible during this pandemic.
I think another thing parents are thinking about is that, you know, we keep seeing all these messages of, wow, you have all this extra time, right? You should be, you know, we talked about homeschooling, acquiring new skills, you know, on the one hand, you know, like how realistic is this and how much pressure and maybe unrealistic pressure are we putting on ourselves to try to do even more during this time?
Right. Well, it's interesting, even before this pandemic, that was a criticism or of telework or telecommuting in general, like, oh, you're at home, so then you can work more hours and you have more time to be productive. And it's just not realistic, especially in this time where we also have to teach or play that teacher role. It's funny because I just had a conversation with one of my colleagues at OSU who's also a parent. We pause and we're like, oh my gosh, I should have been more productive. And then we have to catch ourselves and say, no, this is a different time. There is no way that we can keep that same level of productivity. So just trying to catch yourself and have self-compassion, which is easier said than done. And a key thing about that, though, is really where you work, but also your supervisor is so critical and how supportive they are and how much flexibility, because that makes all the difference in a time like this where you've got these additional stressors and pressures and you really can't be as productive.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this myth of, oh, women can have it all. Well, define all and at what expense, but so I think about that often as well.
Yeah, that's something that I think of too. I say I have it all, but I don't feel like I'm doing it all very well.
Yes.
So what, for those of us who are feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this and pulled in lots of different directions, with your experience, what's helping?
Yes. Well, going back to that myth of like, we have to do it all is like, no, we can't. And so we have to prioritize, right? Because there are going to be trade-offs and not, I think, especially for women, is, feeling like you have to prioritize work over family, right? So that you can keep up with your male colleagues. Your well-being and your family's well-being is what's most important. And there's plenty of research to show that how your family's doing is going to affect your work. And so keeping that in mind, realizing family's priority, but also it's going to benefit your well-being as well as your job performance. So what are those things that you definitely need to do today, and other things that, it's great if you can get it done, but if not, it's okay.
In general, sort of what are kids experiencing, and what can we do to support them?
Yeah, so just anecdotally, especially with my 10-year-old, it was very stressful and worried that she was going to miss a meeting with her teacher and feeling isolated. So just in my family, we moved her desk into my home office, my bedroom, next to my desk, so she can feel some sort of like social connection and not so isolated. But within a family, it's not just parents affecting their kids, they have emotions, experiences, stressors too that affect parents. And so in my work, it's really important to look at both sides, because we all come together and affect one another. So making sure it's developmentally appropriate, but sharing like what's going on, what do we know, what we don't know. There's just so many resources available about ways to talk to your kids about what's going on, like CDC, and I mean, you name it. There's some great options about what to talk about. But I think the biggest thing is just hearing them, like, opening up that conversation, because oftentimes, like, especially with younger kids, they may be acting out because they just don't know how to express themselves. And so that would be important information for the parent to then figure out, like, okay, how can we strategize? Like, bring in her desk, into next to your desk or something like that.
So if parents want to dive a little bit deeper into this topic and learn a little bit more, what would you suggest?
There are so many. I know CDC, trying to think of others, but I was also thinking about the work side, right? So the Families and Work Institute has some great resources. And there's a great report that they just put out that's just one word, and it's about this idea of flexibility, and what supervisors and organizations can do to support families during this time, because it really does go both ways.
I know that you don't like to use the word balance,
Right.
that work-life balance, and I think that I understand that. But
Mhm.
what do you mean by that, and how do you prefer to phrase that or think about?
It's this idea, when you think of balance, is you think equal. So like, equal value, equal time, and they just aren't equal. They're very different. And you may have very different priorities, and that can change over time. So there's different terms like work-family integration. I like the term work-family fit. It's short, and it's really thinking about like, how can I put all these sort of puzzle pieces together to kind of make it fit for what we need right now? So it's not really balancing, but how can I sort of fit these things together in a way that's going to be in the best interest of my family, my well-being, and still help me get what I need done at work, sort of thing.
So what other things, what have you been doing to kind of help with stress levels and
yeah, so one sort of positive side is that the girls and I have gone on more walks, like just trying to get out there, get some fresh air. So that's been kind of nice, and just having that time to connect and have like open it up for conversation about how we're feeling and dealing with things. So I think that's benefited us the most in terms of just our overall well-being and just that connection with one another. So
what are you, I always ask people what they're watching and listening to, because I am watching a lot of TV at night and reading a ton, and was curious if you have any good recommendations.
Really try to focus on like comedies and keep things light to counterbalance the news and what's going on. I've caught on to this show called Gogglebox, which is the British version of People's Couch in the US, but it's really funny. It's basically watching people watch television and their reactions, and it's just hilarious. Another show that I think is really cute is called Upload through Amazon Prime. And it's just kind of a cute, it's comedy, sort of love story. It's light and fluffy. So I watched the first season of that. That was pretty good.
Nice. Nice. Good. Everything helps.
Yes.
Well, thanks for making some time. I appreciate it. And I hope, that we're back to some sort of whatever this next phase of normal is soon, and for all of us. So anyway, thank you for your time. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.